Until
No, that. They're just like, are you kidding me? You can't get toilets for people outside. And then, obviously, so this is, something sort of my response, or they got money for everything. Why not that? No,
give it one more minute, and then we'll call the order.
The recording has started. Great. Great. We can record our chit chat.
I can keep that for this one.
We missing.
There's these, I don't know if it's that. Don't say about what's wrong. Yeah, okay. So, if there was something else.
You want to check with anyone online if they can hear before things get started?
We tested it before.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. The microphone's working.
Nice.
All right, well, it's quiet, so let's get started. So I'll call the meeting to order. Today is Wednesday, November 5th. It's 4:04. Welcome, everybody. This weekend. Start off with roll call and introductions. I'll start. Hi, my name is Dave Rickberg. I am chair of the commission. My left.
I'm Julie Graham. I'm commissioner.
Marvin Johnson, I'm Jamie Lopez,
Kenny Peterson, community member.
Karen Barter, community member.
Daniel Sager, commissioner.
Frankie Dahl, staffer.
Kyle Milkey, staff.
Chase Burgrave, staff.
Valerie Mayhew, staff. Lila Taylor, Housing Services Manager under the Health Department.
I'm Darcy Montalvo. I'm the Human Services Division Manager, Bankers Health Department.
I'm Jed, staff.
And online, I see Kim White.
Yes, Kim White, Anchorage Health Department.
And Jessica Parks.
Jessica Parks, Commissioner.
And Thea.
Hi, everybody. I'm going to walk over, but I thought I'd say hi first.
And I see Abigail. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, sorry. My name's Abigail. I'm with the Disability Law Center of Alaska.
Thank you for joining us. And Michelle.
Good evening, Michelle Baker, Commissioner.
Welcome, everybody. So with that, we'll move on to approval of the order of business. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda? I have a motion from Julie. Can I get a second?
Okay.
Second from Dr. Johnson. Any discussion? Move anything around, add anything, table anything till next time? We have a resolution to look at this month. Exciting, doing some business. Look at the, I understand that HHAND was going to be looking at reviewing and approving changes. And I don't know if that has been submitted, so we might jump over that when we get to that. We have our updates. Any changes? Any thoughts on the agenda? Anything anyone want to change? Anything online? Okay, seeing and hearing none, our agenda is approved. Thank you, everybody. We'll move on to the approval of the minutes from the October 1st, 2025 meeting. As always, thank you very much, Frankie. Excellent job. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes? Take a motion from anybody.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Motion from Julie and a second. And a second.
From.
We have a second online from Michelle. Okay, take a moment to read through them quickly. Any edits or corrections?
Let's see.
Anything?
I had a question, not specifically pertaining to the minutes.
We have a motion on the floor right now, from commissioners, please. Seeing and hearing none, the minutes are approved. So we're going to move on to our action items. So we have a resolution. Thank you to Jessica. I believe was the lead author on this, for putting this in front of the commission. I think procedurally what I would do is
For a motion to.
invite someone to.
Or you can make the motion yourself. But yes, you'll need a motion on the floor to approve the resolution and then.
Can I get a motion from someone to move this resolution, and then second it, and then we can open it up for discussion? Daniel, we have a motion from Daniel to approve this resolution in a second. Second from Dr. Johnson, and that opens it up for discussion. I think I would like to invite Jessica to, as the lead author on this. And am I correct on that? Were you the lead author on this? To speak to it?
Sure, I can talk, and Daniel can talk as well. So the kind of purpose behind this resolution and the conversation that we had at a commission meeting, and then followed up with more conversation, was really focused in on the 10,000 homes in 10 years initiative, and really wanting to create that advice or that encouragement, that part of those goals be that we are working to create housing units that are affordable housing units. Identifying and acknowledging that there's a severe lack of affordable and accessible housing here in Anchorage. I think we've done a lot of work at the municipal level to reduce the barriers to construction, and encourage that development. But wanting to make sure that in those conversations, there's prioritization and work done that is specifically looking at affordable opportunities, whether those are rental opportunities or ownership opportunities. And then just making sure that we are aligning all of that work with all of the different plans that exist in our community and around the state, that are focused on those resources. So looking at our consolidated plan, looking at continuum of care goals that are documented in Anchored Home, looking at the Alaska Housing Finance Corporation's Moving to Work plan, and how they are working to allocate resources to housing development. And then just looking at other community housing strategies, just to make sure that's an alignment that's happening in that plan. And then really pushing and recommending that there be reporting that is not just looking at the units that are being created, but looking at affordability outcomes and equitable geographic distribution, and that we're not just pushing housing in one area of town or in one particular type. So that was the gist of it.
And then can I ask, the bold parts, those are comments, not part of the resolution, is that correct?
Yes, so the ones that are printed for commissioners are comments from Commissioner Sager
Okay,
and the other.
So she did like,
Yeah.
wrote all this out, and then I just have responded with here's my personal notes in bold of what.
Those are additional comments, but not part of the overall resolution.
It was just like, that particular item, those are the questions I had about it, how the commission should word that or work through that. And then obviously whatever questions anybody else has about.
Well, since you got them written down here, do you want to take a moment to speak to your comments?
Yeah, so the first one, the 1/3 of the units, so 3,300 units, she had put down there. I was just curious how we would word that. How would that get sussed out into, like, we can say whatever we want to say, basically, like, say 5,000 or whatever the number is, but how would that actually happen? Like, who gets to decide? Is that zoning? Is that permitting?
Yeah.
And then the funding for that, like the units are gonna cost what they're gonna cost, you know what I mean? Like, and I think a lot of that might come from Jed too.
Yeah, I can kind of speak to that. Like, I think the way we would, the way this could be operationalized would be to look at the number of units that are being funded through funding programs that have affordability restrictions on them, and then just tracking that sort of in parallel with the overall 10,000 homes. Because yeah, it would be very hard to determine just for like the total number of units, including all private development, how many of those would actually end up being affordable by this definition, just because that, there's like rent surveys and stuff, but it'd be hard to pin that down. It's not something that's routinely collected. But we do have funding programs that are geared specifically toward affordable housing and do have like rent restrictions and so forth and covenants and stuff like that do limit those. And so I think, and we'd have to look at like the amounts that we realistically get through those programs and how many units that might really translate to. So I can't necessarily say that this is an achievable goal within those programs, but I think that is the place where that data could be tracked, is in units that are actually being publicly funded that would have affordability restrictions on them, which may end up being an undercount of the actually affordable units if there are also private units that are within these thresholds. There just wouldn't be a systematic way to track that.
And you're talking about new construction? New construction, not vouchers for
yeah, I would be talking about new construction. Although, I mean, one thing to note about this is that the 10,000 unit goal does include rehab units. And so that is another place where we're talking about putting together a residential rehab program that would have parts of it funded through those funding sources that would have affordability restrictions. And so that's another place where we could track that. But yeah, I think, the way to track a goal like this would really be just to limit it to units that get public funding from the sort of affordable housing TM sort of programs, rather than trying to determine the cost of every new department in town.
Does anyone know offhand on the initial framework for the 10,000 homes in 10 years, if there is a percentage of that listed already in their goal for
I think their overall goal so far is just 10,000 homes.
It's just,
period.
because
Yeah.
overall it will bring down ideally.
The idea is to just increase the supply to lower the cost. And
Okay.
They hadn't been thinking of it in terms of like specific segments of that within different cost categories. So yeah, I mean, this would be like an additional thing, basically in parallel to that overall goal.
I think a question, I love an ambitious and aggressive goal here. I wonder, kind of what you were saying, what would be trackable, and is 1/3 is a large chunk of that, and I would love to see that, but I also want to put something out there that is achievable and isn't just said like, oh, well, that's an impossible goal, so we're going to ignore it, kind of thing. I also wonder if, and I will put this out to the group, if the more important thing is tracking the new units about what's affordable and what's not, and then being able to calibrate differently in future years than here in 2025 setting a 10-year goal. So, I think just sort of visibility into the type of units that are being constructed is really step one. And then maybe in 2 years or 3 years, when we see, how the chips are falling, we can use that information to calibrate and then set a realistic goal, knowing what's going.
And no, I guess when I read this, I'm thinking like, no private builder is going to build affordable units. Like, it's just because it's allowed. So with private money, I should say. So it would only be grant money, HUD money that would be going to.
Well, I mean, in a way that could be tracked. I mean, in theory, if like people are building so many units that then the overall rent levels are falling, then some of those are going to dip into that affordable threshold. But it's not something a developer's gonna plan for unless they're using these funding sources that are specifically for affordable housing.
Right.
So, currently the only developer really that's doing that kind of development is Cooking With. And so we could get a pretty good sense from them, and we are actually gonna meet with them later this month to kind of talk over what they've got planned, to see how many units they might be planning, and then we could probably see how many units might come about through sort of other public programs, HFC or some of our funding, and see what type, like how many units a year might come from those sources, and that might inform kind of what is realistic, but we don't have those numbers to hand like right now.
Who built this one next door? Because that one had,
Yeah.
So that one had a thing in there that it was like percentage of these units have to be.
Yeah, I think they had some sort of requirement there. I mean, it was primarily privately financed, but ACDA donated the land, so there was a portion of public resources.
Okay.
But it was not funded with any of these like grant programs. So it's not under it's not under a federal requirement to meet any particular affordability threshold.
Julie and then Jessica.
Yeah, I just think what you guys are kind of talking. A lot of people, when they first heard 10,000 homes in 10,000 years, they thought, oh, well, that's not an achievable goal. But now it seems as it's being talked about more when I'm at different meetings. It's like, oh, maybe that is possible because there's talk about refurbishing buildings, applying property. So it's like, now when I'm just in general community on something, it's like, oh, that is not impossible. So I would kind of think that 1/3 is not impossible. And it's just something that we strongly urge. And I'm wondering if you're getting too much into like the nitty-grittier part of like who's gonna fund this. I get what you're saying, that you need to know how it's gonna be funded, but does a resolution need to say how everything's
No, I
gonna be
mean-
funded? Or is it just saying, this is what we want, this is what we're supporting, we're gonna urge, put forward ideas? That's just what that.
Yeah, I mean, you're an advisory commission, so, I
Right,
mean, a
yeah.
resolution for you is just saying this is something we support. So if you're, it's not binding.
Right, right.
And it could be an incentive to the city to like track that. And
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you guys are saying, this is what we'd like to see, that gives us guidance on, okay, we'll see what we can do.
Jessica?
Yeah, I just wanted to share also, so the 1/3 number was somewhat arbitrary, but the other numbers in there, the 60% AMI wasn't. And when I look at, so the State of Alaska Department of Labor does a rental market survey every year. And so tracking through the rental market survey and looking at the average rents in Anchorage, and specifically for apartments is what I was looking at as well there. It's actually lower than fair market rent, which is what is affordable to someone who is at 60% area median income. And so I think it was intended to be a little bit more of an encouragement to look at types of housing that are more likely to be affordable, which are a little bit higher density type of units. Even the single family rentals, though, when we look at contract rents, especially for bigger units, they're not far off of fair market rents. So I think maybe that's a little bit deceiving for some people too. Fair market rent, which is what would be affordable to someone making 60% or someone whose area median income is 60% of AMI, is $1,600 a month for a 2-bedroom. That's not unheard of in our city. So I guess I just wanted to toss out, I think that might be a way of tracking some of it too, is looking at the annual rental market survey by the State of Alaska Department of Labor and seeing if there's a way to break that information down. I don't know what their source information looks like, if they look at the age of the unit, perhaps. If there's a way to extrapolate from there too, but just throwing that out as a potential tracking mechanism.
Thank you, Jessica.
Those are 2-bed, 1-bath?
I don't know the bathrooms, they just track bedrooms, but yeah, 2-bedroom.
And I'm comfortable leaving it in there. I just wanted to have some discussion about it. I see Michelle have her hand up. Oh, we can't hear you. Uh-oh. One more time, maybe. Stop. I see she is typing. Any other comments on this number 1? If it's acceptable. I think we're gonna keep the conversation to the commission at this point. I'll remind you, if you want to get involved in the conversation, we do have open seats.
This is a question. Could we just go back for 10 years and model against these criteria to see
How many of them?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
been
It's very few.
like
Very,
17, yeah. Something. There was actually just an article reading the other day about that. It was like 12 triplexes.
not just the number, but meaning the 60%, the AMI and stuff like that. So 10 years of data against those criteria to see what number comes out. Do you follow what I'm saying?
So what number?
Like, okay.
What the proportion was over the last 10 years?
Yeah.
Yeah, we could figure that out, yeah. I mean, that would kind of give a sense of what.
I think it would just give us a little bit more closer number maybe, but.
Yeah, and
just
I
a
mean,
thought.
the affordable, units with like grant funding are like not as tied to market conditions as overall construction is, so, I think a calculation like that would give a sense maybe of what is realistic with the resources available, sort of setting aside the piece of what the private markets are.
And I'll just highlight Michelle's comment. She says, Jessica, thank you for putting this together. I wanted to see a part of the housing numbers include things like transitional living, assisted living, permanent supportive housing, complex care, residential, and low-income housing.
Yeah, so if we're talking about the housing survey, I think that is also important to note. I'm really glad you brought that up. That survey does exclude most units that are classified as a single room occupancy. So boarding houses, hotels, shared bathrooms and kitchens, those are excluded from this particular survey. But it also excludes units where the rent is reduced for low-income tenants or special groups such as disabled persons or senior citizens. So when HUD or LIHTC or USDA subsidize those units, those are excluded from here too. The only, they say it in here, exception, but the one exception is market rate units where the landlord gets a housing subsidy and the tenant pays the difference. So like if someone activated a housing choice voucher and just went to a private landlord, that would be included in here. And it would be the rent that is being charged for the unit overall, not just the tenant portion. But it does specifically exclude in this survey places like, for example, Carlock Manor, where there's a project-based voucher that reduces the rental amounts in there.
And Shanae Williams, see your hands up.
Okay, you might have said it and I missed it. How was the data gathered, Jessica, for the survey?
The Department of Labor survey, the Department of Labor mails out surveys, and I'm pretty sure at this point they do it like via email as well, to landlords and potential landlords. I'm skimming over theirs here. It looks like they use the sources of assessments, business license, people who have responded to the survey in the past, and then it just says other online resources. So I would guess that their research department has a general list of these are the people who are likely to be renting units, and that's who they send the survey out to. Here, I'll put this link in the chat too.
Thank you.
Would anyone like to propose any specific language changes for point number 1? I for one think we've had robust discussion, but I think it is good as is before we move on to the additional points. We can talk about it all day long, but someone would need to come up with a specific change to the language and propose that. And if not, we would pass it. Okay, cool. We have point number 2, develop incentives, zoning reforms, public-private partnerships prioritize affordable rented and ownership opportunities across all neighborhoods. Daniel, you had a comment about significant pushback on this from community councils. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, just following the last year and then this year, the zoning talks that have been going on by the assembly, has just been very heated in all the community council meetings, if anybody's been tracking the pushback on that. It seems to me, based off what I've read, is that you've got certain neighborhoods similar to mine, which already has a pretty high percentage of multifamily homes in it. And so they're pushing back saying, we've done our part with a 50% multifamily rating in that neighborhood. And you have neighborhoods like Rogers Park recently with the Tisdo push, where they're like, no, we don't want to tank our property values. So I was curious if the group was aware of any neighborhoods that were okay with the zoning changes that kind of came out and said, yes, absolutely, like an Airport Heights or something like that.
What if we zoomed out a little bit and changed the word neighborhoods to districts? And that, I mean, we have 100 and, I don't know how many neighborhoods we have in Anchorage, but we have a ton of them, and we only have, I should know this, but
10 assembly districts?
10 districts?
Assembly districts are 6.
6, yeah, we only have 6 districts. So rather than targeting in that we're looking for this change in every single neighborhood, we're looking for some of these changes just to still have the spirit of it to be spread out across Anchorage.
Yes.
It's not all in one area,
right,
but remove the word neighborhood and change that to district.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I agree with Jessica 100% that it should be spread around as much as possible when it makes sense. Like, obviously, there's some neighborhoods that it's not conducive to do.
Right.
A lot of the pushback that I've talked to people about has been the fear of changing the zoning to where you could have a neighborhood that is traditionally single-family home or low-rise ranch-style multifamily, and then someone being able to put like a 4-story complex right next to it, which I understand if I was to live there, but so yeah, so you're saying change it to districts instead of neighborhood?
That would be my suggestion to kind of throw some
zoom out.
Yeah, zoom out a little bit.
Do you want to make that as a motion to amend the?
And we have Jessica's hand up as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think using the term district is a good space there too. I wonder if there's a way to change that language though, because I agree. And I think the idea behind that was wanting to say, like, I agree, don't just say, all right, we're going to prioritize affordable rentals. Let's put them in East Anchorage. Like, you know, it was intended to be more along the lines of making sure that affordable rental and ownership opportunities are equitably distributed across all neighborhoods. And so some neighborhoods might already have a good percentage and some neighborhoods don't. So I'm not quite sure what the right wording on that would be, but that I think was more of where I was going with it. And I agree with Daniel that there is a lot of pushback on that. And so what is the correct wording that gets to that point of we want to encourage this in all neighborhoods, in all districts, and not just more high density housing in neighborhoods and districts that already have high density housing and affordable housing.
We just make it to where no one is happy.
Yeah.
Okay, so did you want to move to amend
So I would move to amend in point 2 the word strike the word neighborhoods and replace it with the word districts. And I would need a second. And discussion.
Who was the second?
Daniel.
Okay. Discussion. Any opposition? Going once, going twice. Seeing, hearing none, we'll make that change.
And now we're back. Anything else on number 2? Okay. Moving to 3, municipal funding tools, including but not limited to tax abatements, land donations, infrastructure support, and housing trust resources be leveraged to deepen affordability and ensure long-term housing stability. Daniel, I'll tee you up again. You got a comment here, so.
This is something I wanted to talk to Jed about here. You see my note there, is that I remember that was discussed.
I actually don't have the version of it.
Basically, there's those, usually I think they're 1 acre. Sometimes they're bigger, like in the Northwood Park, example, but there's those little 1 acre parks that are kind of scattered all over the place. There have been discussions at some point recently with Parks and Rec in the city about looking to change those and putting multifamily buildings in there, rezoning it just to add, and Parks and Rec would have the exact data of how often those parks are even used. Usually a lot of those things go around. Basically just a green field.
Probably something the planning department would have looked at more closely. I think rezoning parks to build on them is going to be controversial. Sure. If it's just small parcels. And actually, one of the things that one of the changes that the Assembly recently made to the zoning code is to allow the planning department to initiate rezonings themselves. Up until recently, they could not do that. They could only rezone in response to a request from a landowner or something. And one of the first things that they were going to do with that was actually going to be to rezone some parks that are not zoned for parkland to be parks, to kind of take that land out of consideration for development. So I mean, there's a balance there, obviously. Sure. How much parkland and how much developable land we want. I hadn't heard any discussion about building on those lots. Yeah, I mean, my only thought would be that probably would be a heavy lift politically. As for the land bank, I mean, the Heritage Land Bank does have some parcels that are potentially developable, but I think there's just been some challenges because the circumstances that lead to the city taking over a property usually mean that there's challenges to using it. So I think Thea might know more about that. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, certainly, we can. These sorts of discussions are ongoing sort of within the municipality about sort of where there is potential for development. I think probably there's going to be a lot of opposition to parks. Yeah. Is Thea still on?
She's on there.
I'm here.
Do you recall any discussions about that, what we're talking about recently?
With the relocatable buildings, is that what you're talking about? Or the ability for Muni to do rezones?
Working with, I would imagine, Parks and Rec to rezone those small neighborhood parks that are kind of all over town and using them to put up multifamily buildings.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I haven't heard any discussion of that, but is that something that you're interested in?
Yes. It seems, it would be controversial in certain situations. It seems to me it would be less controversial than putting a 4-story eightplex in Rogers Park. And the Muni already owns the land, so it would be like.
Yeah, I haven't thought about that much, but I would be happy to talk about it. I guess on the surface, to me, the way that could maybe be best pursued would be if there was a community council that had a neighborhood park that they wanted to see rezoned. I don't know if you have any in mind or if you've talked to any neighborhoods who are interested in that.
No, I have not. I mean, I certainly could. That'd be relatively simple.
I mean, I've definitely heard people talk about school district parcels where, especially if like a school is being closed or reused for something else, or, just that there might be additional land kind of on the perimeter. I've heard people talk about that conceptually. Yeah, I mean, I think it's an idea worth talking about, especially if we have a couple locations that, the community is supportive. I mean, I think that would be the hard part is people are very attached to parks, so.
Would there be someone that, I could speak with at Parks and Rec about that too, maybe that would know, if that had been discussed kind of already internally?
You could certainly talk to Taylor, who's the park superintendent, but I also would maybe encourage you to start with like the Federation of Community Councils, with the director there. Because I think they might also have some thoughts about, locations.
Yep, I can pinpoint some that I've got a list of at home, and then I can reach out to those people about it just to see.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you have some ideas, even just going to community councils and talking about the idea and, yeah, but I think if you want to kind of get someone who's an expert on the parks, that would be Taylor Keegan at Parks and Rec. She's the park superintendent.
Taylor Keegan?
Keegan, yeah, Keegan.
I'm just gonna do a time check. I would like to try to call a vote on this by 10. Because we have some other stuff on the agenda. So I think there's more discussion about the park thing, but in my opinion, using municipal funding tools to deepen affordability and ensure long-term housing stability is a good thing to add here. Anyone have any specific language changes? Number 3. Neat. Okay, we'll move on. Number 4, coordinate with state, federal, tribal, nonprofit, and philanthropic partners.
So I had a question on
Yes.
number 3. My hand was up. I don't think you saw it.
Oh, sorry.
So the writing, the bold writing, is that suggested to be added, or is that just
So those
discussion?
And that was just part of the discussion. The bold writing were just comments from a commissioner while they were discussing via email, I believe, but it is not intended to be part of the overall resolution.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. On to number 4, coordination with state, federal, tribal, nonprofit, and philanthropic partners be strengthened to maximize resources and align with Anchorage's consolidated plan, HUD continuum of care goals, Anchor Home, Alaska Housing Finance Corporation's moving to work plan, and other community housing strategies. So we agree all good things there. Any other thoughts from commissioners? Great.
Yes. I know, just maybe it's under philanthropic. Well, there's been a movement to strengthen with faith groups, and often faith-based groups have land. So I didn't know if that was something to add in to coordinate the state, federal, tribal, nonprofit, philanthropic, and faith-based partners, but it was just a thought. And that's just because I know there's been a lot of work on that with the mayor's office and the faith community, but I don't know if that's something that, it was just a thought.
Well, Julie, if you make a motion to change that language, I'll second that.
Okay, I make a motion to add faith-based partners or faith-based organizations into
Second. Discussion? So it would go, just to get the language, coordination with state, federal, tribal, nonprofit, philanthropic, and faith-based partners.
Yeah.
Yada, 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 yada.
Yeah.
Any opposition to that addition? Hearing and seeing and hearing none. Go ahead and make that change. Excellent. Then moving on to 5. 5, great. Love it. Ongoing monitoring and transparent reporting be required to track affordability outcomes, unit production, and equitable geographic distribution. Daniel, you have a comment in here that just says yes. I love it as well. I think keep it. Any other comments from others? Okay, so be it further resolved, the HAND Commission stands ready to work with the mayor, assembly, community stakeholders, and housing providers to achieve these goals and to ensure that Anchorage grows in a way that meets the needs of all residents, especially the most vulnerable. So that brings us back to the main motion of approving the overall resolution with those two changes and minus the bold writing. Does anyone else want to speak to the resolution before we call the vote? I think it's a good resolution, and thank you for those who had a pen and a hand in writing it. With that, right on time. Is there any opposition to approving this resolution as amended? Going once, going twice, 3 times, and we are approved. Congratulations, commissioners. We have passed 2 resolutions. That's 2 more than the last 5 years combined. I, for one, am proud of us. Excellent. Where is my agenda? There it is. Okay, moving on to D2, review and approve changes to the HAND Commission rules and procedures. Y'all got a copy of the rules and procedures. Shanae Williams, I believe you last month volunteered to go through this and make some specific changes, and I see your hand is up. Is that what you are hoping to speak about?
Well, I had one question, and yes, I did volunteer for the other, but I have not received any comments from anyone. But I did have a question about the resolution and understanding what the next steps are now that we have approved it. What do we do next? Is it presented during an assembly meeting, or what's the
So what's going to happen is I will take these edits back, I will make them, and then I will route them for signature so that Dave signs it, and then it gets submitted to the mayor's office and the assembly just via email.
Okay. Thank you. But yes, I did volunteer. I have not, I think we agreed that Frankie would forward any additional changes, and I have not received any.
Did you have any thoughts of changes on your own?
Yes. I think we talked about a couple in the meeting.
Well, let's, I would be curious to hear what your thoughts for changes are. Maybe we can start the discussion there. I'm gonna try to allot us maybe 15 or 20 minutes for this discussion so we can get to our presentations.
So I can let me bring the document up. I think there were a couple of changes because I think some of the information was dated. There were some department names that have changed. I'm not looking at the document right now to be able to tell you specifically which items, but they were general, more or less, to make things more correct.
Right.
I guess they were more commentary than a change to what was written there.
I think what might be helpful is if we could get some of those suggested changes in writing sent to Frankie, and then Frankie can send it out to commissioners. And I would ask, I will be fully transparent. This one fell off of my radar, and I didn't even look at this. Went on vacation, went to Aruba for 5 days, didn't even think about it. So, I would be comfortable with taking the next month to go through this with a finer tooth comb and actually do our due diligence there, because I know I did not do mine. And be a little bit more prepared to talk about it next month. What do folks think of that?
In a second. Because I don't look at it either.
Other commissioners? And then, Shanae, if you have specific comments, let's get all those to Frankie in writing, so we can have a more robust discussion about this next month, and I promise to be a little bit more prepared.
That
Are you
sounds good to
comfortable?
me.
Are you
Yes, I'm comfortable with that.
Okay. Great. So that closes out our action items. And so Frankie, we can keep this on the agenda for next month, please, and then we'll move on to our informational items. We have an update from the mayor's office, housing and homelessness, and community safety and development. We'll start with Thea, you're up to bat.
Hey, David, can you just put me down a couple items? Because I'm like probably 2 minutes away from being in the room with you. Okay,
Housing and
thanks.
homeless, or Jed, why don't, because the Thea update and the housing and homeless update, there's usually a lot of overlap in there. And I see.
Yeah, I don't actually know if we still have anyone from housing and homeless.
No, she's in the car,
Okay.
unless Kimberly White's on.
Yeah, looks like Kimberly left too. So, yeah, I can go ahead and give our update for community safety and development. So, we are in the process of closing out emergency rental assistance. That program ended September 30th. We now have fairly final numbers about the number of clients served. We served 718 clients in the course of that program, really over about 3 months, and so that was a pretty significant number of people. We had originally projected about 600, so that did overshoot the original projection for clients served. We are still working with our grantees on their final spending and how much they, in a couple of cases, are underspent. So we will be returning some to the Treasury. I do have a list here by grantee. These are not final numbers because we are still evaluating their final invoices and seeing determining eligibility of expenses and so forth. But just as a first cut, so Anchorage Coalition to End Homelessness had an initial allocation of $941,232, and they are projecting the spend will be $488,506.48, and so they will be returning $452,725.52.
Yeah.
Choosing Our Roots had an allocation of $156,250, spend down of $136,766.57, and so they'll be returning $19,453.43. Henning projected that they have spent their entire allocation of $835,679. NeighborWorks had an initial allocation of $600,000, projected spending of $491,194, so they would be returning $108,806. New Life Development projected that they would spend their entire $323,000 allocation. United Way had 3 grants, all of which will be fully spent. There's eviction diversion for $600,000, Home for Good for $273,685, and Landlord Housing Partnership for $250,000. That was a lot of numbers, so we have these compiled in the document that you can send to the commissioners. And again, these are tentative. We may have some changes to these. And we are kind of working with those grantees that were underspent to kind of do a debrief and lessons learned about sort of what the challenges were and why we ended up underspent. because, we don't want to see that, particularly in a case like this where there's a hard deadline, and once that's passed, you can't undo that, and we just have to return it. So, the total, return is probably gonna be on the order of about 600,000 or 700,000, out of the overall ERA to tranche 3 was about 2 million and some.
It's probably early, but will there be any data to show if people who, once this stopped, if they are able to stay in their places, or if they end up?
Yeah, we're gonna continue tracking outcomes for the clients who were assisted with ERA as best we can with the grantees. And generally they're using HMIS, and so that information will be tracked, and we can get reports on that. We did also allocate a relatively small amount of funding to HAND for continuing tenant-based rental assistance beyond ERA to stabilize clients that are at risk of particularly going to homelessness if they lose their housing. That's about 260,000 that we're working with them on getting that process. That process is a little bit more cumbersome. There's more like reviews and compliance things that we have to do, and so they have to send us a packet of information about each of their clients so they can approve it. But we are working with them on getting that process in place. And yeah, we'll continue to share data as we have it.
Commissioners, when do you anticipate the final numbers?
So final numbers will be, the timeline on that is the final report to Treasury to close out the grant is due January 28th. The deadline for our grantees to provide their final reports of any, final spending numbers or adjustments is December 29th. And then once we submit to Treasury, they will review it and determine how much we are going to pay, because they will also have to verify that all of the expenses paid were in fact eligible, and if we determine that there are ineligible expenses, they will require repayment of that as well. So there will be at some point after January 28th, basically, they will notify us of the exact amount they're looking to repay, and then we'll repay them. At that point, so sometime
Any other questions from the commissioners? Anyone online? All right, thank you, Chad. Yeah, welcome.
Thank you. Sorry to do it all the time. Okay, lots happening. I wanted to pass this out. I can't remember if I shared the version of this. So the health department worked on developing this diagram. I'm going to a community council, so I don't want to give you all my copies, but this basically kind of depicts the system that we're supporting and growing and building. I don't know if, did Kimberly already report out on?
They did not.
Okay.
No, we don't have any more.
Okay. So we did add another 20 surge beds at East 56 today. So that brings our number of surge beds up to 50, in addition to the 300 year-round beds that we're fully paying for. And then you can see on this diagram on the right-hand side, those are all the beds that the community is also helping to support at community-operated shelters. So we're just really continuing to try and do as much outreach as we can, get as many people indoors as we can. We do have an abatement scheduled for, it'll be posted on Friday, and it will begin on the 18th. That is a location by Tudor and Elmore. You may have heard there was the vehicles, stolen vehicles found in there, as well as some other things. We did meet with some of the folks that are staying there yesterday and had a really good conversation with them that Jessica helped convene. And by the end of that, those 3 folks plus their 5 friends and family agreed that they would go inside, it was great, a great conversation, and I think they also were really interested in doing more peer outreach, which we're very interested in supporting. We do have a situation happening at Lions Park, which is a privately operated park in Mountain View that's adjacent to Davis Park, where the Lions Club has decided to allow people to camp there until November 15th. So we met with them and the Mountain View Community Council on Monday to kind of talk about that, since it's a very different approach than what the council and the meeting have been doing together since last fall. So we're doing some intensive outreach there, try and help as many people as want to come inside. What the Lions Park is saying is that as of November 15th, they will not allow anybody to stay there anymore. So, and I'm hoping to meet with them again tomorrow to talk about what they're up to. Budget is, there was public testimony on the budget last night. We did present the kind of overarching, what we're calling the community safety budget, to the assembly at a work session 2 weeks ago, and got like 2 questions and not a lot of concern. So hoping that things kind of go through and we can continue to support the work that we've been supporting. I think those are kind of there's a lot happening, but I feel like those are my hot topics in the season yet.
No, I mean, we've got a lot of stuff in the works. You know, we're talking about doing a residential rehab program that would have several different types of funding involved. I mentioned that a little bit earlier. We're going to be meeting with Cook Inlet Housing at some point to kind of talk about what they've got going on.
Is that the micro units that we're down on?
Actually, I want to give it, that's the thing, that's what I just thought about when you started saying that, Jet. So micro units project is going great. We just secured some additional funding from a national funder that will be going to the assembly on the 17th. But that's allowing us to add 8 more units to that project. So we have 24 built, I think. They're being built in a warehouse. They've finished all the site improvements at the Tudor and Elmore site. They've buried everything now. It's all back to ready for the units to come in. So around like early December, they'll start moving the units into that location. We have the review committee for the operator meeting, I think it's this week or maybe early next week. So that will hopefully go to the assembly, probably first meeting in December, just thinking about how the process goes. And then they've agreed to finish the additional 8 units by mid-December now. So hopefully we'll get it all up and running. And then I'm also trying to entice, we've had some really great meetings with both big communities, trying to kind of, and Julie's been great at being willing to kind of be a mentor to other communities that want to do a similar project. So my dream, it is only a dream at this point, is that I will entice some other people with money to keep the little micro unit factory going, and that we could potentially add a few more projects. So that's still a dream, but working on it. But that's going great, so pretty exciting. Yeah. Did you already talk about the relocatable dwelling units?
No, but we can talk about that. So yeah, you know, the Assembly did approve zoning changes for relocatable dwelling units that adds more flexibility about where sort of micro units and relocatable units and different sorts of housing typologies can go. And we're exploring the idea of doing some sort of mobile home park redevelopment, because now you can actually replace a trailer on site with like a modular unit or something. You don't just have to replace it with another mobile home per se. And there's some potential there to do some types of projects with like what we're calling relocatable dwelling units that have some flexibility, to be moved around. We've been thinking about this, like, you know, with the longer term typhoon response and the need for sort of medium term housing, and kind of depend what sort of resources come online for that. But you know, the fact that the units are are movable, does add some flexibility about kind of where they are in the response as the relocating. We did have to, just one thing about that, we did kind of transition from the initial shelter response, and everyone is now getting on the congregate shelter in hotels, so they could decommission the needed center and less of the lifestyle profile type of response.
Questions from commissioners? Anything online?
One thing that I think is exciting about the units that you had mentioned at one of our meetings just the other day is that now, there's like a blueprint model, they're bigger, and I think it makes it much more accessible for another church group or parking lot to take like 3, 4, or 5 of them. And the biggest, I think you brought this up, the biggest deterrent might be just that utilities piece. So I'll figure out ways for a church to connect with utilities. And our building, I don't know if it's unique, and when I say Central Lutheran, it's so old that we couldn't tie in like we originally thought, just because of the age of their certificate or yeah, so that's a little bit of a deterrent, but you know, there's ways around it. But I really think that now that the buildings are more easily made and accessible, I'm really excited about talking to a couple groups that have talked to us and saying, look, we can get the buildings like here in Anchorage, just plug it in. Yes, so I think that's exciting. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Moving on to business. Kenny, thank you for joining us. Usually in the background in these meetings, but now you have a presentation.
Yeah, this is
and I'm excited to see.
This is our coming out party. You are the official first public event where we announce the Good Neighbor Fund. So you guys are first among all. So I don't know what that means to you. There's no cookies that come with it or anything. But since you're now my best friends, I'm gonna read to you what I posted when our Good Neighbor Fund became public to my Facebook account. Since no one subscribes to my Facebook account, I suppose you would have read it if I actually use Facebook. But my family did it, so they all read it, and they gave me stars or whatever you do in real life. So I got a couple hearts from my kids on this. So, but this is how I announced it. Hello, good day to all of you, kids. Well, it finally happened. We got the Good Neighbor Fund established for helping the homeless in town. I am thrilled that 100% of the donations are being used by the Anchorage Police Department Outreach Hope Team and through the municipality contractor RRS responsible for the homeless shelters and systems. They are helping meet the needs of those on the streets and in other public places. This has been a dream of mine for almost 15 years. In fact, the original document that we wrote that had this spelled out is right there. 15 years ago, up there, heart. This is the executive team, the outreach team, and the providers. And right there, Nancy Burke and I wrote, need flexible funding. That's, you know, you always say that it's described on the napkin. That was our napkin, and I kept a copy of it all this time. So this has been a dream of mine for almost 15 years. When I finally turned it over to God and His wisdom and timing, it worked out much better than I could have imagined, of course. You're welcome to contribute if you wish to do so. I created the simple version right there, so if you want to QR it, you're welcome to QR it. Very simply, give to the Good Neighbor Fund for the homeless. Our Anchorage outreach workers use this community fund to help our homeless neighbors be safe and improve their lives. So there's your QR code online for it. That's the simple version. And then there's something that really got me started 15 years ago. This is not in there. They would not have read this if I put this in there. But 15 years ago, I was sitting in my office at Allen and Peterson, and we have a lot of homeless down below. And I sat there and I was like, how do I help the folks down there now? Everyone through panhandling, you're always going, I wish I could have a better way than panhandling, giving through panhandling. And this is the solution. This is the better way. We've tested it for the last 2.5 years. Kathleen and I, after Sullivan was taken down, that we used the money for it, Kathleen Laughlin. And so after Davis Park got abated, everyone moved over to Russian Jack Park. A lot of people moved to Russian Jack Park, and they were abating that. And I saw Ruth and Tanya, the Hope team, just going like, how do we help? If only we had some money to help this person get somewhere in transportation and help this person fix their car, and this one needed an ID and they can get some, and they didn't have any resources. And so after seeing that, the city helped us, a few community members, to establish this fund, get it connected to the Acres Community Foundation, and it got established. And so we are receiving contributions. My passion was when I sat there looking down at the folks there, I read a statement from one of our church leaders, and it just absolutely inspired me. I've been pursuing this for 15 years, but on the back of your long explanation, this is the longer version, so you can read the longer version. On the back of this is a system that we use in our church to help fund these, and it's called fast offers. It's where you give up a meal or two. Here, this was my advertising piece 13 years ago. Help a neighbor in need. Give up 2 meals a month to help provide food and housing to a neighbor. What do you do? Once a month, give up, do not eat, a meal or two. And give usually we do this on the first Sunday of the month, give the money value of those 2 meals not eaten each month, or the food itself, to one of our recommended neighborhood helping organizations, in this case the Las Vegas Community Foundation, the fund. Then what happens, and this is the amazing thing, help will be provided to neighbors in need who are invited to work for the assistance received. It's not just a handout, but it's a handout. In fact, we helped someone, and one of the requirements they had from Kathleen just recently was to write a thank you note. And this is a thank you note from someone who just got helped 2 weeks ago to the community. On behalf of, and their names, we just want to say thank you for your program and giving us the opportunity to be back in our own place. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for everyone involved. Signed, the family. So that was one of the ways that they gave back for it. 100% will provide to help pay for housing or other needs, not a penny to administration. So anything that everyone gives, it doesn't go through nonprofits. It goes directly into a fund that is spent directly by our outreach workers. And so I asked our outreach workers, how are you spending this money? Oh, sorry. And we'll help out the neighbors in our area. I asked them, how are you spending this money? And this is from Kathleen today. And I hope that you love this as much as I do, because it's amazing. The Good Neighbor funds have been targeted to specific real-time needs of vulnerable individuals. The funds are for needs, not wants. What we have learned over the past 2 years is that very inexpensive short-term gaps can be filled immediately, which in turn allows an individual to move forward in a way that is healthy for both the individual and the community. Some examples, and there's 10 of them, so I still have like 3 minutes, right, Franklin? Here we go. She's like, this is how they're using the money, and so you see some panelists says, I'd love to give to you, but I shouldn't because, and then so on. I essentially hired outreach workers to do that for me and to do it in the right way for it. And this is how they're using the funds to actually help the people on the street corners and in the camps and the parks. That's where this is going. Individuals who are long-term campers at Davis Snow Dump were provided short-term rooms outside of the shelter system. We didn't have to do more shelter. Most of this, and in fact all of this, I think is outside of bypassing the shelter system. To acclimate to living indoors before being folded into shelter programs. One individual from this group was referred to the VA and is now in VA-supported housing. Another individual is leaving shelter tomorrow, which this was written today, so tomorrow you have someone who's leaving for permanent housing. Campers from other areas have also been served in this way. What we've learned is for long-term campers, given 2 to 5 days of short-term housing support has made significant positive difference in how they ultimately enter shelter and wraparound services. So a little bit of transition between. Number 2, that's housing. Number 2. 3 high-needs older individuals were approved for Providence House. The Good Neighbor funds were used to pay the $250 deposits. These 3 individuals could not get in housing because they didn't know how to pay a $250 deposit. They now have permanent housing. They're permanent instability. Another male with stage 4 cancer, this is a week or 2 ago, with stage 4 cancer was in shelter, wanted to return home to a small town in Minnesota. Good Neighbor funds were used to purchase a plane ticket and a Greyhound bus. I understand that's quite complicated to get that arranged to return to his hometown. Number 4, IDs have been underwritten when no other programs were available to provide ID vouchers in a timely manner so individuals can get hired, enter treatment, or return to homes outside of Anchorage. 5, inexpensive phones were purchased from Walmart for individuals coming to shelters from camp so they could text and call and keep in touch with the outreach teams to keep in touch with them and other safety net services. 6, bus passes have been purchased for individuals who are outside shelter services but need transportation for long-term medical treatments. A way to go to Healing Circle, senior services, and simply use the bus to stay warm and sober. 7, prescription copays. These typically cost $5 to $20 and make the difference on whether an individual can get their needed medications in a timely fashion or not. These are usually one-time costs for initial prescriptions and then bridge the gap between that and the time to get their paperwork in place. And then returning home. By plane, train, bus, Lyft, Uber, taxi, transportation home or treatment programs is being done in real time so individuals are not stranded in Anchorage and Ontario. And then we do some short-term transitional permanent housing assistance for individuals who are able to get into housing from shelter but do not have the money for deposits, or a few weeks of rent at the beginning of their housing journey, anywhere from $500 to $50 to $700. So we've kept this data, and during the month of October, we helped 16 individuals get off the streets with this kind of solutions for programs that we had, including those 3 that we talked about. And then finally, assisting families who are transitioning from living in their cars to housing. Bridge funding for a month of housing has assisted getting them out of their car and get them to wraparound services through existing community programs. The key is real-time services that fit the need at the time of the need. RRS attempts to keep in contact with those who have received the benefit of Good Neighbor funds. So they keep in contact with them. It's not just a pay and go. They keep in contact with them, ask the recipients to contact them after they had the benefit derived from the funds. Because the population is fluid, there's no exact number that they can provide. But without the RS can say is that without the use of these funds, individuals that would have that were served would not have reached level stability using the funds that have been used. That's how it's used. Did I hold up the sign so you guys can give?
Yeah.
There's the sign so you can give. If you don't have enough money, did I tell you how you can do it? Don't eat dinner tonight and give the value of that money, and you won't, and you'll feel a little bit of kinship with them. Because they're kind of going hungry too a bit for it. And so now we'll share it and they'll have it. So I want to just make sure that I covered everything that I wrote. That's, you know what the fund is by now, you know how we spend it. What's unique about it, 100% no admin, frontline use, Kathleen, and so on. Everyone has individual care plans. We've been working on it for 15 years. We have kept track of it for 2.5 years. We have data for you if you'd like to, if you're a data junkie, we can show you what the last 2.5 years are and how we spent it. And my call to action for you is personal contributions, hopefully monthly. You can be the initial donor, sign up now. We're having a rollout here soon for the rest of folks. You're my first folks, so give me your feedback. Say, don't talk about that or don't do that. We'll do better. And promote it to leadership, whoever you can promote it to. Anywhere, any houses. Have you heard about that thing? That's a cool thing. And then also, if you have circles of influence, I guess people do memes and actually have people who follow them on Facebook, so I welcome you to spread that and influence people and just to be involved. And so we have QR codes, we have flyers. Any questions or feedback?
I really appreciate this creative approach and having the flexible funding. You know, I think a lot of organizations receive a lot of grant funds that say spend within this box, but a lot of times the people that are in need are going to have needs that are outside of that box. So, you know, I love this creative and innovative and really community-driven approach. I think we may have answered the question, but I'll just give you one more opportunity. Besides individual contributions, how would you see the commission here helping?
How do you want to help?
You can just share the information.
For me, there's other people who say, wow, what we can do with it and get everyone to give lots of money for me. For me, is that if everyone in here gave $1, that would be amazing. The number of people who gave $1, and not just give $1,
but didn't have a lot to eat tomorrow, and gave that dollar. A little bit of sacrifice. If everyone did that, since you asked, I'm going to give you actually a scripture. This principle, how long, Frankie, how long do I have? You said 15 minutes, so I'll take 2. I think that would be the end of it. This is a scripture that talks about fasting, and it's amazing, and here's the promises. This is Isaiah 58, I thought it was 6 to 11, and then Aaron Baldwin gave to me there's an extra verse, and it's great, verse 12. Is this not the fast that I have chosen? To loose the bands of wickedness and to undo heavy burdens. So when we fast, there's some way of doing that. To let the oppressed go free and break every yoke. And then in the verse, probably verse 7. Is it not to deal thy bread to the hungry, that thou bring the poor that are cast out to thy own house? When thou seest the naked, that thou cover him, and that thou hide not thyself from thine own flesh, you show up for him. And then here's the promises if you do all that. If you use fast and you cast off your figure. Then shall thy light break forth as the morning. I see that as our community, so community development here. And thine health shall spring forth speedily. Thy righteousness shall go before thee. The glory of the Lord shall be thy reward. Then shalt thou call, and the Lord shall answer. Thou shalt cry, and shall satisfy. Here am I. Get close to the Lord. If thou draw out thy soul to the hungry, and satisfy the afflicted, right? Okay. Satisfy the afflicted soul. Then shall thy light rise in obscurity as a community, and thy darkness as a community be as noonday. The Lord shall guide thee continually, and satisfy thy soul in drought, and shall make fat thy bones, and thou shalt be like a watered garden, and like a spring of water whose waters fail not, and that thou shalt call and build up the waste places. And then this is the last verse. I don't know why I missed it. Thou shalt raise up the foundations of many generations, and shall be called the repairer of the breach. We're separated from these folks. The repairer of the breach, the restorer of passive dwelling. And so there are tremendous promises regarding this fasting one for it. So I recommend that. But either way, tell your friends and they can donate however they want. But there's some blessings for our community, and each of you can do that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I love the personal stories that, because I think a lot of people in our community that are involved maybe with the unhelpful situation and just see people on the street, when they hear stories like we gave them $250 and that got them into housing, people don't know that if they're not in the work of it. So the more of those really personal touching stories, when you go to community councils and talk, I think that's really great.
Okay, so you just invited one more. One of my friends in front of Walmart, everyone goes by Walmart on A Street and going, why didn't someone do something about this? I was out there doing outreach, and one of my friends in a wheelchair out there who has gray hair that you see all the time over there, whose name starts with initials. I was sitting there and I was standing there talking to folks, and he reached out and handed me some money. I said, oh, let me go get you something in Walmart. And he said, no, this is for your cause. And so those are pretty sacred money from someone who's on the streets who gave to this cause. So, sorry. Did I hold this up for you?
With that, we got
Wait, hold it up. There you go.
4 minutes.
Go ahead, I'll just hold it for you. Zoom in that far.
Dave.
And the rest of the stories there too, they just uploaded some stories with some links.
Because we've got 2 public comments.
There's 2 public comments.
It looks, I think so, yeah, if she's still here.
Okay,
Yeah,
great,
so-
great. So can I get a motion to extend by 10 minutes, please? Daniel? Motion, I need a second. Julie, second. Any opposition? Seeing hearing none, we will extend to 5:40. With that, we will open it up for public comments. I got 1, 2 public comments in the room. Oh, you got the timer off. Thank you so much. I will get rid of this one on my phone. Any public comments from friends online? Nope. Okay, who wants to go first?
I will, yeah.
Great.
Okay, yeah,
And go.
Here in Barnard, I'm homeless over a year. I was illegally evicted, so I've not received protection from HUD. I'm a choice voucher, housing choice voucher holder. I was entitled to legal help from HUD. There is money there. Couldn't work the levers. I got environmental health here to enforce. within 10 days of the beautiful letter, told us to clean it up, get rid of the mice, he evicted me. Definite retribution. I'd already been asking for repairs for months. And what he did was refuse to repair, so my voucher was cut off. So then, if I didn't leave, he can get me in court. So I looked at these court diversion programs. It was a waste of time because he doesn't want a deal. It's for non-conforming landlords, it was a failure. Yeah. And then I also had some serious heart surgery. I'm like a living miracle, tell ya. And complex care, David Rittenberg, they kept me out of the tent. In August, I went into complex care, and it was better than where I was. You know, I had a working kitchen. However, the chaos there was horrendous, and it made me sicker. And then I got booted for some unknown reason exactly. Excuses used, and I noticed there was infractions, and so David has worked to change that policy. Well, it took me 2 months to get back in, so I got sicker. So I got back in February, I got booted again. Meanwhile, I've been asking for solo room since last December. And they have all these rules and stuff, which none of them are legitimate for choosing rooms and stuff. And so then I got booted in August 1st, been out 2.5 months. I got a notice that, there's no help with property preservation. That's a constant problem for homeless people. We lose everything. And then guess what? We gotta replace it all. Well, I had a group last summer who paid for 3 months of storage, and so I was supposed to be in an apartment. Well, with an illegal eviction, nobody wants to rent with me, and nobody will help me get that case resolved correctly, hold that landlord accountable. So now, I am so traumatized, so ill. Back in July, I get a notice, oh, we're gonna auction your storage unit. I'm like, oh yeah, 3 months is zipped by, it's 10 months. Yeah, and thank heaven the accountant has a lot of sympathy and kindness. So I got a notice, I got a phone number, I called, and it turned out to be Kenny. So I'm a good neighbor. He's kept my storage unit off the auction block. Yes, and I got a first class ticket into my volunteer work is at Bean's Cafe. So I go for 2 hours. That's about all I can stand up, but I do it and sleep for 4 days. But I've been trying to get other people to go in. So this works because depression is a big battle for me, and so it kept me in the game. But I still have $2,000. I need a hotel room. I need with a kitchenette, a shower, and a second bed so I can do my PT. The shelter is too chaotic. People have said, well, you should be in a hotel room or extended stay. And with how long, they put those people in, but I'm not FEMA eligible. But there needs to be some of that funding. I hear about all this stuff, ERA, and
obviously we try to keep public comments about.
Yeah, I know, and it's like, I'm sorry, but I also need legal help to get that eviction off, because all these connections are just not effective.
Do you have an ask for the commission?
Is to figure out how to help with property preservation, enforce the law. If the laws are there, why aren't they being enforced? Why do I have to take responsibility for this crappy landlord? I mean, he's getting away with it years and years and years. And
I know the assembly was just looking at passing some new stuff about to address this specific issue.
I think it did get it through.
did it get passed? Because I saw that, but it doesn't help me.
So, but I can help you just today. In fact, Lila and I met with, isn't Abigail on the, is she still on?
Let me see. Sorry, I moved it off the, yes.
Okay. Abigail, would you just mind putting your name and email in the chat?
Yeah, I
They're
can
from
do that.
Disability Law
Sounds good.
Center, and I think that's the exact resource you need for your.
Yeah, I tried them, but they wouldn't take the case last year.
Okay, well, let's try again.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, and
What?
We got to have a, we're gonna work on that together.
Yeah, no, it's, cause I can't
I'll
remember.
write it down.
What?
I'll write it down for her.
and we have Jamie.
All right, so Jamie Lopez, East Anchorage, formerly Coalition, formerly Elvis. That is tough to follow. Yeah, I'm not big on resume builders. There are inclusive forms, exclusive forms, and I've seen too many of the exclusive type. And when I was coming here the past 3 months, this was more of an inclusive sort of discussion. Because there are not very many people in this room that actually have lived experience, and I am a resource and I am an asset, and I think Mr. Peterson knows that. I just can't find other people to recognize that too, that are willing to pay. And so I go out all the time, all hours. I see things most people don't. And so when I read here the rules of the HHAND Commission, that you have to submit, essentially testimony beforehand, or sign up for certain items, and then you only talk about one thing. You're not really getting to the meat and potatoes of working certain issues and making it better. It's more about control. And so again, maybe this is my last time, if that's the way that things are going to go. But anyways, with all that said, if you want to change and you value lived experience, maybe you should allow lived experience people to talk about actually applying to become a commissioner and then be denied, or just telling people they can talk to me at the end, because it seems like I'm not valued. So today, Public Health and Safety meeting, I had to watch this, the Western Alaska storm response, and so the people from Tiger-Long, naturally there was a disaster, Erie backed out, put Alaska Airlines Center, and World Health Kitchen, I think it was, Red Cross running it, very high level standard of care, considered gold standard. 1,000 hotel beds identified within the span of 2 weeks, 100 apartments, and those people are whisked away into hotel beds. Only the people in Anchorage could be labeled as evacuees, they would get the same treatment. So I was looking at this today, and I see essentially a inflatable Quonset hut right here, and then they have essentially hay and straw shelters for animals and pets and all this stuff. I know people that can't even get inside, let alone the pets, and I'm thinking, again, if only these Quonset huts could be available for places. And so it's tough to watch. It's like an episode of The Twilight Zone, essentially, where people are not getting the same standard of care to live here in town. And the Lions Park situation, essentially, there are any number of police going in there threatening people all the time and running people into the ground to a certain extent, and and supporting them for the better part of a year, and then consequences of to that. And so these people have no place to go. This is essentially people that were at Davis Park and Snowdown that have been displaced. They used to be intense in the Snowdown, and essentially they were roaming the neighborhoods and not people like 50 caravans and nomads. So they congregate typically at Lions Park at night because it's the only place they can go. And Lions Club, there's 6 people I was going to those meetings pretty much weekly, and then the police would come in there, even though those guys are trying to get me to join. And so the whole team ladies are nice. The enforcers are going out and messing with people. And I can tell you this, a lot of people don't trust the RMASAs. There's one that come out with police, 2, some of them even failed. And it's like if you're moving people over right next to the old police station, there would be concentration camp sorts, and it's not something that is very conducive to there. So there are ways to work problems. The question is, do you want to fund real outreach and not attach it to police? Because if you do, you can get better outcomes. And last time I mentioned that at the assembly meeting, 1 hour and 47 minutes, I think it was. And then also at 3 hours, 10 minutes approximately. Yes, there was comments made about how to improve the outreach situation. And if you get 10 good people and pay them 80 to 150 grand a year, people can fix problems and get better outcomes. So the past 2 weeks I've come across 3 women, and I'm trying to work to help get some of those people in Lions Park housed right now. Just because I know that they will not interact with the police ladies or the RRS ladies, but they will interact with me because I have street credit and I have done good things. But you have to get people out there that are actually not police, not a threat, and that can go at all hours and are trusted, can handle themselves. And there are not very many of those people here in town, but, you know, and it's something to consider. So, you know, I don't think I will be applying to the commission, but if you want to go around and say, I'm still willing to have it. So, thank you very much.
You just have 2 more minutes. Do you want to start over?
I think we are good. Any questions or any, I don't know how many reports, any comments from commissioners? Anything online?
No, I was just gonna say, I do understand like the public comments being at the end of meetings, and maybe that's something to think about. I don't know what that is, but as it gets at other meetings, sometimes it's like you sit through everything, and then, you know, you only have a couple of minutes, so it might be something to think about, switching the order of business. So it's just a thought to put it out there, not at this meeting to talk about, but maybe at a future meeting, and making it more user-friendly for people to speak first and then go on with the next step, so just for the fun.
One thought I've had about that, because I certainly have directed people to the HHAND Commission for a more like open dialogue.
Right.
Because when you go to an assembly committee, you really do just have the two minutes at the end, and same with the assembly meeting. So one thought to consider is that it might be something you could add to your agenda sometimes, where you just propose a topic, and then you know, invite people to just be part of a facilitated discussion on that topic. And so it could be more of a give and take, because I think it is, this is a different, or it's just another, like, this is community run, really. And so I think it's a forum where you really can kind of decide how you want to organize it and how you want to make space for people.
Yeah, and, you know, I would say, you know, your commentary is valued and welcome. I think when we have a packed agenda and we have business that the commission wants to get to, you know, we were able to pass a resolution today. We haven't done that in a very, very long time, and so for this commission to actually do things, sometimes that does need to be limited a little bit, so commissioners can have their discussion, take a vote, like do all of that, and you know, from my experience with community council, that is often one of the reasons why public comment is saved for the end, because sometimes, and I'm not saying that that's what was going to happen here, but sometimes public comment can get off the rails a little bit, and the community council, the body, wants to make sure that the business that they have been working on month over month takes precedence over, you know, what a community member is feeling in that day. And I'm not saying that that's you, but that's why the format is the format. So, you know, I would encourage you, you know, if you don't apply, that's okay. One of the ways to affect change is to get involved with some of the bodies that are to that. So
Just, can I just say something quick? So before the 1 minute is up, could we, on the next agenda, talk about order of business, just as a topic, and
we are,
or we
that
have
would be encompassed under the rules, yeah, and the order of business is set.
Oh, so I can make a comment.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Before people read the line, what I was trying to comment on, you were discussing monitoring and how to essentially monitor the 10,000 homes in 10 years to be able to determine how much was going towards affordable housing. And so you have two methods, two tracks typically to do that: funding streams and then you have tax relief. And so obviously, if people are getting tax incentives to essentially build units, sometimes what you can do is put certain requirements and restrictions on those tax incentives so that they can track who is applying for those, and then they know And then obviously what Jessica was talking to, you know, you can sort of put restrictions on 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, fair market rates, and then try to, you know, find a way to monitor it so that you reach the achievable goals. So that's more or less what I was trying to convey. It was not permanent. So anyways, so all right.
Okay, anything else? I don't even need a motion to adjourn, it's just time to adjourn, so we are adjourned. Thank you.
One thing that I will say for commissioners,